Hello and welcome to We Never Met, where I have interesting strangers on every single week. Today, I'll try to pronounce it. Is it I don't know. I don't want to mess up the last name. Conyers. Okay.
Yeah.
Halie Conyers. So welcome and thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So just to start off, could we give people like a little bit of background on what you do currently, like right now?
Yeah, totally. So I actually work full-time still for Kohl's. So I'm a product development. That is like my 9 to 5, but my passion and hobby, which is how we connected and met, is through my business that I started, Halie Co., which is handmade jewelry that is all made by me. Sterling silver and 14 karat gold filled. And that got started because it was actually my college major.
Oh, okay. So before college, were you interested or even aware of this path to go down?
Yeah. So total like huge art family. So growing up, my grandma was a painter. So I was always just like rolling around in paint and having fun with her. It was just like, we were very creative. And my mom took a beading class when I was maybe in the 5th grade. And so I was like, that seems interesting. And we were always doing after school, like learning to sew. And my dad liked photography. So we were taking a lot of pictures. And so she stuck with beading. And I was like, okay, I kind of like this. And at the time we were living in Tennessee. And when we moved back to Michigan, we found a after school program kind of at our art center that she learned metalsmithing. And I was in 6th grade and I was obsessed with it. And so I got to do a little bit with her after school. And when I went to high school, I actually was really lucky. We had a metal program in our art department.
That's wild. I never heard that before.
Yeah, it's insane. And so I actually got to start with jewelry making my freshman year of high school.
Wow. What was your grandma painting? Was it like portraits or something?
Nope, she was super abstract. She just loved color. So they were very colorful, abstract. So I kid you not, when I was, 5 or 6, she would lay a giant canvas, just like tarp on the ground and just be like, pick your colors, squeeze it on the ground. And, whatever you want to do to paint with, whether it's like walk over it or grab a brush or like, I was definitely one who loved to just like roll around and my clothes would be destroyed. But, and then after it's like, this kind of cool painting, and she actually hung up a good amount of them in her house that were like these floor paintings that we made together. So she was always just inspired, I think, by color and just like the way that you could make paint move and so many different.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Do you still have any of the paintings, even sections of them? Because it sounds like they're huge.
They're huge. I do not here in Milwaukee. My parents have them, and there's actually a few that are still in her original house. So,
nice.
Yeah, but it's nice. They're probably like, 4 feet tall and like 3 feet wide, just like massive paintings that she has, and they're terrible, but she loved them. So they're hanging up and my parents love them. And so they're hanging up in their house too.
I mean, that's objective. They're probably cool to some people for sure. But yeah, no, that's super cool. I think even just talking about like, cause talking to so many people, and there's such a difference between even the generation that we're in and our parents' generation, and then going even back a generation to be like that openly creative and just cool with just doing something that you really like to do is, I think, really awesome.
Yeah, I will say everyone growing up that I met that was also interested in art was like not really supported by their parents to go forward with that. It was more of a hobby. And I remember talking to my parents, and even in high school, they were like, if this is what you love to do, like put your time and energy behind it. So when I went to college, it was a no-brainer. Like I knew I wanted to study art, and it was just, where am I going to do it? And that's how I ended up in Wisconsin, is because Wisconsin-Madison has a really good professor system in their metalsmithing department. It's like top 10 in the nation. And so I was like, well, I want to learn from them. Like that sounds amazing. And so I went to Madison studying metalsmithing.
Yeah, that's super cool and unique. And it's awesome that your parents supported you. What do you think it was was different about your parents and maybe their upbringing or what they were introduced to that made their perspective so different than other people? Because you don't find that often.
For sure. I would say for my dad, so my grandma is my father's mother, and so for him, it was just, he was supported and nurtured, and his dad had a car business. So he was always working in the family business. So there was a lot of time with your family. And if they love being creative and like doing that, like they were all for it. And my mom, she was a teacher for a while, and then she now works in marketing. And so for her, it was like her outlet after work was to be creative. And so I think just together, they were just like, this is your passion, go for it. Like, we don't want you to go into something just because of money, or we don't want you to go into something that you don't want to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And they supported that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. So did your parents grow up in Tennessee? Is that where they're from?
So we're from Michigan.
Okay.
Both of my parents grew up in Michigan. And then my mom's job moved us to Tennessee for about 5 years, and then moved us also back to Michigan. She is in the automotive industry for Ford. And so they had some marketing department or plant down there that they moved her to and then moved her back.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up in Detroit? Because I mean, I'm from Milwaukee, and so it's pretty, obviously you're in Milwaukee now, but it's pretty close to Detroit. I mean, growing up, you didn't hear awesome stuff about Detroit all the time. So what was it like for you growing up there? And I know now, I talked to someone that was living there now. They're on like this massive renaissance of like, things are getting a ton better. But what was it like for you as a kid?
So growing up from, like born through when we first moved to Tennessee, we actually lived in Detroit, but we lived in a really nice neighborhood. So I personally didn't have the experience of what was going on like in the city, but my family loved the city. So we were always going down there, and we were, like putting our money into the community, whether that was like working the soup kitchens or going even to a Tigers game. There was never the idea that like something's bad and you have to stay away from the city growing up there. And then when we moved back the second time, we just moved kind of to a suburb. So we were like 30 minutes from Detroit. But even then it was starting to kind of have this like uptick where a lot of businesses were investing down there. And so now it's a completely different area. It's crazy. Like if you go downtown, apartments down there are just as expensive as they are in downtown Milwaukee. And like that was not something we had growing up. And so there's a lot of younger people going down there. So it feels really like energized when you're in the city now, which I like a lot. And most of those people are creative. So there's just like a ton of art spaces or, clothing stores or big warehouses where they just rent out sections of it, and you can go in and just use this space for whatever creative thing you do. And so it's kind of forming a community. Like, I feel like I've met that here in Milwaukee where if you kind of put yourself out there, like there's a huge artistic community in the city, and it gets pretty easy to connect yourself to those people. And so it's nice to see that that's kind of forming in Detroit.
Yeah, because I mean, I know that there's like other cities that are looking at it now, like how did they do this, and like how can we implement the stuff that they've done to make our city better and stuff. Because is it very similar to Milwaukee where it's like very segregated too? Is that or is that not the case?
Yeah, but I would say, and this is I can't say, like I don't study the history of Detroit, but growing up, it was not like there was a really rich downtown. Like there weren't. Nobody really lived there. Like the money wasn't there. People didn't want to have apartments downtown. So I think it was less segregated, where like Milwaukee, you go very downtown Milwaukee, like it's very well to do. And like people enjoy being around and outside. And then you go kind of the outskirts and it's a very different Milwaukee. I don't know personally that I saw that in Detroit, where you might actually see that a little more now because money is moving into the city because it's kind of having this like energy and revitalization.
Sure. Yeah. I was just curious because I don't think I've ever even, I've never been to Detroit. I've been to Michigan, but I've never been to Detroit. So it's one of the cities that I really want to go to, but because there's like a ton of cool stuff I'm sure to check out.
For sure. Especially now, just like the scene down there is just a lot of fun. Like we would never, in high school, it wasn't like, let's go downtown Detroit and just hang out. Like now it's like when I go back home, like, well, pre-COVID, there was a million new bars and restaurants and clubs opening. So it was always like, we have to go check out this place. Or, like there is a really cool restaurant. I forget the name, but they just kind of took a street downtown that has maybe one actual standing house. Like there's a lot of streets where like the houses are just gone and it's just grass and like maybe one house that a family actually still lives in, but they kind of took these plots of land and they just made like bubble tent restaurant area. Right. So they just like kind of this community where we come like, have a meal and they would bring in different food trucks and stuff. And so it's actually a really fun place to be, even though if you were there, 5 years ago, it was really sad to see that all of these houses are gone.
For sure.
So it's definitely fun. And there's a lot of newness happening in the city.
When you were in Detroit, because you went to high school in Detroit?
When you're not from Detroit, you just say you're from the Detroit area. But where I lived was more of the suburbs. So I went to high school in a city called Bloomfield Hills.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I only actually lived in Detroit until I was maybe 7 or 8. So when I moved back and was in, middle school and high school, I was really in the suburbs.
I gotcha. Greater Detroit area.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's when you started taking the metalworks classes and things like that?
That was in my high school, and I had seen my mom take a class, and so I saw that we had that as an option for school. And my school was set up where you had to have a certain amount of sports, arts, and kind of like the extracurricular, whatever it was, in your schedule to graduate. So they kind of forced you to get out there, and whether that was like trying a new sports team or trying an art class or, doing a play or chess club, you had to do a certain amount of those things. So I was excited because I really wanted to try metals, and it wasn't something that at the time I found a class for, middle schoolers to take because it's expensive and it's fire, and that's not something most people want to deal with. So I jumped right in, and I loved my teacher, and I really just those 4 years was always in the metal studio. Like any free time I had in high school, I was there working and doing summer classes and, convincing my mom to buy little things so I could work on my projects at home just so I could always be making. And then I was hooked. So I had to find more from there.
What do you think it is about metalworking and creating things like that you really enjoyed so much?
Yeah. So I've always liked the creative side, but I will say I am not a big jewelry wearer. Okay, I'm wearing my jewelry because we're having this podcast, right? Yeah. I like the creating because making jewelry is actually just so hands-on, and it's just dirty. It's not this dainty, delicate making, but what you come on the other side with, you see diamond wedding rings and they're so delicate and precious, and the metal is so expensive that you really have to be planning out your every move because, if you mess up, you might have just wasted $500 of material that you might not have the resources to, refine back down to start over. Right. And so you're buying a lot. And so I just love the challenge of this is what I want it to look like at the end, but how am I going to plan for all of these potential problems that might happen to get there? And so I think I kind of like that calculatedness about making jewelry.
Yeah. It's funny that you point that out because I never really thought about that. There is a huge juxtaposition between the actual creation and what comes out at the end. Yes.
And it's a ton of chemicals, and, you want your metal, and you have your sheet metal, and whether you're sawing it or cutting it and bending it with wires, and then you're melting it together with solder, which is more metal, but it just melts at a quicker temperature. And so you're dealing with fire, but you need chemicals so your metal doesn't change colors. And so you're always wearing your N95 mask and goggles because, you're going to be polishing and material is just going everywhere. And, my hands are always just covered in polishing compound and fire. It's the dirtiest thing. It's just so funny because what comes out in the end is just such a delicate piece of jewelry that someone can wear every day and they don't even know they have on it. I love that difference in making and wearing jewelry.
What was the first piece that you created in that metal class in high school? Do you remember?
Yeah. So the first thing I ever made was a ring, and it was I think it was probably a 6-week time period where we had to start from learning how to saw a square that was the band, and then you had to file it and sand it, and then you had to learn how to bend it correctly so that way when you soldered it, it was going to fit you and it wasn't too big or too small. And if it was if it's too small, you kind of have to start over. If it's too big, you can maybe cut down and try again. And then picking a stone to set on top of your ring, right? So it's which one do I want? I love this one, right? And then you have to make the setting. It's called a bezel, where the stone is going to sit, and then you have to solder that again to your ring. And then, you know, the final thing is like setting the stone, and hopefully like you don't crack this thing in half, and then you have to really start over because you're not going to have a stone that's the exact same shape. And so it was probably 6 weeks, but I still, like, to this day, I don't have it here, but I have that ring. That was like the first thing I made, and it's bad. It's bad, but it stayed together. So I was like, all right, this was hard, but I can do this. And ever since then, making rings with stones has been like where I wanted to get. And I'm just now starting to get back into that because I knew it was expensive, but I didn't realize how much of an investment it was going to be to start outside of, you know, a program where all the tools are there for you and maybe you're paying to use them, but like owning all of that stuff is
because what do you need to create? I'm sure it's a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah. So you know, if you're just wrapping wire, which is a different type of jewelry making, you don't need as many tools, but to solder metal together, you at least need a torch, you know? And so then what comes with a torch is you really need like something for the fumes to be sucked away, and you need the chemicals for your metal, and you need a crock pot that has like a warm solution that will take all of the like residue of the fire off of your piece. And then you need, you know, things to polish it. And so, I mean, I kind of piecemealed because I knew how to do it, tools as I could, just because I was, you know, like I was saving up work money to buy this, to like restart this hobby, you know, but it can be like a couple $1,000s for people who just jump right in and buy like all the tools at once to start making metal. And so it's definitely, I'm not even there or close to being there with the tools that I could use, that I got to use in college or high school.
Yeah. It's just wild to me. Like, even just the fact that things come out in a perfect circle is like mind blowing to me. Like, I don't understand how that works.
And it's crazy because it's a lot of like to shape a ring. So you're using pliers that are metal to bend metal, and then you use fire to solder it, but then to shape it back into the circle. Like, it's not a perfect circle when you combine, like when you make the ring at first. And so you actually slide it on a thing. It's called a ring mandrel, and it's also metal. And so you're actually just like using a wooden or rubber mallet to like smack your metal against metal to shape it, like to form it. And it's kind of cool because it kind of feels a little bit like blacksmithing, which obviously it's nowhere near that because we're not making cool swords or anything. But, you know, even in college, like we got to make a spoon, and it was crazy, just like the amount of times that you have to heat metal to be able to hit it enough to move it, to shape it into a utensil that you could actually eat with. It's crazy how metal can change so much.
Yeah, because going from that ring that you created that took like 6 weeks at first, like how long does that process take you now to do the same thing?
So if I sat down now, I could probably start to finish, you know, not minus the time that I put it in like a tumbler to polish it overnight, probably like 2 hours.
What?
And so, yeah. And,
wow.
And like, don't get me wrong, that's if everything is perfect and I get it right the first time. And like, I've been doing metalsmithing now since I was in the 9th grade, and like, I mess up a lot still. Like, it's never something where it's so calculated that you're just going to be perfect every time. And so it's a crazy difference from a 6-week class to making, you know, I can probably make 5 or 6 rings a night if I need to, which I don't like to because then I feel a little rushed, but you know.
Yeah. I mean, that has to be that's a really cool thing though, to literally see the progress in time from, you know, that long ago till now. Yeah.
And it's funny, like my mom keeps everything I ever made. Like you know, there was like a test, like pick an animal, and in college, my professor knew that I did metalsmithing in high school. And so he was like, you're going to do this T-Rex. And like, I want to see every tooth and every nail. Like, I'm expecting you, like, prove yourself, right? Like, or I'm not going to believe that you did this. And I remember just like meticulously sawing this T-Rex out. And then we had to like pass them all around. And everyone did, you know, like bunnies that were just easier shapes to do because they were learning. And he gets to mine and he's like, I think you have more teeth than I got. And it was like, okay, yes. Like, okay, maybe I'm okay at this, right? Like maybe this is going to be something that I can do.
So when you were in college and you started doing it more often, was it primarily focused in more of like a jewelry capacity, or was it just metal in general? Were you just creating a bunch of different things?
It's always been focused more on jewelry. I will say in college, they do focus on the technical, like, can you make a box out of metal, or can you make a spoon? Like I said, because they want you to have those skills. But the focus for me has always been in jewelry. I've never really gone into sculptural pieces. Even with my jewelry, I like things to be wearable, and I like things to be functional. And I have a lot of friends who like handmade chainmail giant shoulder pieces, and like they were amazing, but it wasn't like what I was feeling passionate about. Like I wanted to see someone walking down the street and be like, I made that ring. Like, that's crazy. Like, that's so cool, just because it fit them. And right, like they felt like this reflected them. And so I've always focused on the jewelry side.
Yeah, you don't see too many people walking around in chainmail.
No, but it was the coolest thing. Like, she formed, I want to say like 5,000 like 3mm jump rings by hand with wire and soldered it all together. And it was like, I don't even think I could sit down and put in the effort to make that. And so, I was impressed. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. You not being, as you said, like the biggest jewelry wearer, where do you get inspired? Because all your pieces are super unique and cool. Where does that inspiration come for like a new necklace that you're making or something like that?
Totally. I would say like seeing my friends and like my family, like the things that they like to wear. And it's not even necessarily the jewelry that they like to wear, but like their style. Like for me, like I usually just wear like t-shirts. So if I'm going to wear jewelry, it kind of has to be longer. I don't want it to be tight. And so I find inspiration from like, how do people like to present themselves, right? Like, do they want to be polished, where they need a piece that's like silver and going to kind of blend in? And so I try to take inspiration from, the people around me and like their style, and then just seeing what's out there. So like, I'll see what Tiffany's is making and whatnot. Obviously I'm not recreating anything to that scale, and I'm not making engagement rings, I'm making more of like the everyday wear. But I try to be just like inspired by other people and like what they like to show themselves as.
Yeah, because do you see your stuff? I mean, you alluded to your friends have some things now. Do you see your stuff out there in the world often? And how is that? Isn't that a cool experience?
Yeah, sure? So I will say I more so see my things in the world through pictures. I have not run into anyone in Milwaukee and I was like, hey, like, where did you buy that? But also it's been COVID and I relaunched my business in May, which we were shut down by now. So who knows, maybe if we weren't in that time, because I really put a lot of focus into starting back up Halie & Co. outside of work, like from May till now. And so maybe I would see somebody out there and be like, wait, that's cool. Like I made that ring. Like I've seen that before, but it's awesome seeing people like wearing pieces and saying like, it feels like it was made for me, or it feels, like I never take this off. It's my everyday piece. Like that's awesome. It feels good.
Yeah. So you said you restarted it. Did you stop doing this for a while? Yeah.
So when I first graduated college, I was like, how am I going to like get this creative fix? Like, like I didn't really know how I was going to do it, because I was starting a job in retail at Kohl's, and that's the job I'm still working, which I love, but it's not the creative outlet that I just spent the last 7 years of my life doing. So I needed that. And so I started with beading again, because it was something that didn't take a lot of money to invest in. And like, I didn't even sell anything. I just would make it. And, I made my boyfriend's, his sister-in-law's pieces for her bridesmaids for their weddings, just beading, just because I wanted to be using my hands and making things. And then everyone was like, why don't you like do this? Like for real, like put in the time. And I tried, but I didn't put in the energy. And this was, kind of like at the beginning, middle of 2019. And I was just like, how do you have a full-time job, also have a social life, and run a business? Yeah. And then COVID hit and I was like, well, I can't have a social life. So maybe I actually put in the energy and like start my business up again. And so I kind of relaunched it in May, and it has gone like, I'm here talking to you because of this business that I started that like 2 years ago, I wouldn't have had faith that I was going to go forward and do this. So it's crazy how growth has happened so quickly.
Yeah. Were you missing it? Like, were you not doing this? I'm presuming after college, since you didn't have the tools, you weren't doing this at all. Right?
No. Yeah. And like, I wanted to, find an art center and take a class. It was a big adjustment for me coming out of college, like moving from Madison to Milwaukee. I didn't really know that many people, I was starting a new job. And so I was like, okay, give yourself a year, like focus your energy on your job, like get some friends. And then I was like, bought the things and did it myself. And so I was definitely missing being creative for a period of time there after college.
I'm sure you see this too. Maybe I see this more because I was looking you up and I got recommended a bunch of stuff. But I feel like there's more and more people that are making jewelry and things like that around. It seems like by the week.
For sure.
What do you think it is about yours specifically that stands out from the rest? Because, and I there's no one specifically I'm talking about, but sometimes you see these and you're just like, is that going to turn my finger green or something? Yeah. You know what I mean? So what do you think it is about yours that has
for sure
taken off?
So I honestly have this conversation with myself every day. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, there's a million people that sell that, it doesn't look too different from mine. Maybe I, made it in a different way because I had a metalsmithing background, or maybe, but I think what I put into it is the idea that because I know what I'm doing, like I'm going to pick good metals from the start, right? I didn't have to have that trial and error where I was buying gold plated material that would turn your finger green after one or two wears, because I kind of knew already to stay away from it. So I knew that I needed to invest in higher quality from the beginning. So that's really helped me have to kind of skip that like down point in your business where people are like, I need a refund. Like, this is turning my finger purple. And like, like I'm having all these horrible reactions. So I felt good there. But then for me personally, like making jewelry, like I'm not here to just try and sell it to everyone. Like, this is my passion. I love creating. And so for someone to love it, like that's amazing. And that like is unique because they feel like called to buy that piece because it stands out to them. And so it feels much more personal to me. Like I'm connecting with the people that I'm making jewelry for, right? Like I'm not just trying to throw a bunch of things out there and just hope like I sell out. I want to go. And when I was back home in Michigan, I met a friend of my mom's who actually, she's like a lapidaryist, I guess that's the word. And so she actually takes giant chunks of stones and creates cabochons that can be set in rings by hand. Like she cuts them down and like does all the, I don't even know what you do, but you like turn all the stone with water against these polishing and grinding wheels and actually like shape them into stones. And so knowing that so much went into that, I was like, I have to make jewelry. Knowing that like this stone itself was not just like calibrated in a factory, in China, but like this was made by your hand. So it had a story before it even got to me. And like, how can I make it unique so that someone's going to be scrolling my website and see that and be like, oh, I need that. Like that is calling me, right? Like it's much more personal. And I feel like I'm trying to give people who buy my jewelry the idea that like, I knew them before, right? Like I was your friend and I made this for you because I knew you and I knew this feel good about yourself and just like wearing it every day.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the cool thing about jewelry too is that you talked about there's like a story sort of behind even the elements to create it, but once you get it and like you give it to someone as a gift or it's part of an event or something, or it's whatever the case may be, there's also like a story associated with the specific piece that you made, too, which is cool.
Yeah. It definitely feels a lot more personal than just if you walked into Target and picked up like a 12 pack of jewelry off the rack when I'm making things. And so, I kind of think for me and a lot of people that make jewelry, like that's what makes us different from each other because like our stories creating our pieces are never going to be the same.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think that's, it's such a cool thing. And if I wore jewelry, I would definitely get something, but
hey, there is never a bad time to start wearing jewelry.
Yeah, there you go. That should be your website slogan. I was actually talking about like getting a ring or something that would be cool. But
I have actually a lot of people that are like, you need to expand into just like bigger, chunkier rings that are just like easy to wear. Like, because everything I make is kind of dainty and that doesn't make it necessarily feminine. Like anyone can wear this, like, but there's people who want statement pieces and like, I can reach so many more people who maybe didn't even know that they needed this ring in their life or wanted to try wearing something the longer that I branch out into that.
We sort of talked about this a little bit, but when you create something, there's not a customer in mind specifically, right? When you make it, it's more of like you making what speaks to you specifically.
Yep. So it can start that way. Like I've had someone reach out and say like, hey, I had this ring that my grandma loved and I lost it. Like, can we start from scratch, kind of making something that will remind me of her? And like, I love doing that. That it's like, it feels so like rewarding that they want me to make something that was so sentimental to them. But then also when I'm just like buying materials in my studio and just making, I'm like, this calls to me. And if it calls to me and like, I feel good making it, like I'm thinking somebody else is going to feel similar when they see it.
When people get those pieces, do you talk to them at all and just to see like what they're getting it for or whatever, why that spoke to them, just see if there's like a connection there between you two?
Yeah, sometimes. So depending, I do like a local pickup. Like I just have a studio where like here it's very small. So, if somebody comes and people love to tell you why they buy something or like what it was. And so I love hearing. So I'm always just like, thank you. I hope you love it. Yeah. But then they're like, oh, like, I can't wait. Me and my sister got matching ones. We're going to open them tomorrow. Like, we're going to send you pictures. We're so excited. And I just love that. Like, I get to be a part of those moments for people. And like, I'm not selling engagement rings, so I'm not a part of these like big things, but they feel just as special.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. The engravings and things like that, even some of the pieces are so small. Are you like working under like a magnifying glass? Like how do you get those things?
Yeah. So I will say metalsmithing ruins your eyes. So I'm already like, I used to like make fun of my mom and my professors who would need these like head pieces that had like magnifying lens, but then they had like an extra piece to like be really magnified for like the super tiny stuff. And I was always like, you guys, like your eyes are so bad. I'm never going to need that. And like, of course I need that. So depending on how small the stone is, or, if I'm stamping and it's like a 1.5 millimeter stamp and I want to hopefully get it all lined up, like it's taking your time, but also making sure you can see what you're doing. So I do use a lot of magnifying glasses to help me work.
Yeah, because even like placing, like the process of like placing stones in there, is that something that like how is that even done?
Yeah, so depending on, so like the example I was giving earlier of the girl that I met who actually makes the stones by hand, like hers are never going to be perfectly circular or perfectly square because like she formed it, right? Like, and so when it comes to those, like you're actually taking like a strip and wrapping it around the stone to get the exact shape before you kind of like solder it onto a flat place to put it onto a ring. So like when it comes to that, like you want to be precise because, if it's too small, you're gonna have to do it all over again. If it's too big, you don't want the stone to move around. Even if you set it, like if it can slide, like you can feel a stone rocking in your ring. And so it takes a good amount of time to make sure that when you're setting something that isn't perfectly circle or square, whatever it is, that you're making that so tight that it fits.
Yeah. I mean, talking about like putting stones and things, do you ever think about getting into the realm of like engagement rings and wedding bands and stuff like that? Is that a different field altogether? Or?
So yes and no. It's a different investment, I would say, because I'm not buying diamonds, right? Like I'm not buying lab grown or even like natural from the earth diamonds that have been shaped, just because personally they're really expensive. And like, I've never had someone ask me to make an engagement ring. So I've never needed to invest in that. And like, I work with sterling silver and gold fill, and gold fill is essentially like brass that has solid 14 karat gold heat bonded to both sides. So different from plating where it's like dipped and it just has like a painting on it. Like this isn't going to chip off, but it's not solid gold. So like the materials that I use aren't really things that people get diamond engagement bands out of, right? Like it's not like white gold or yellow gold and stuff like that. So I love that trade and I have friends that love it and they do it. And like, people always ask me, will I make my own engagement ring one day? Like, no, like it feels like a different field, even though I have set really precious diamonds in a ring before. It's a different type of special, and it's just not one that really calls to me because it's so tedious, like
sure.
Messing up with diamonds and gold is like, I get stressed out over sterling silver. True, and like, that's just such a different realm that like, I would want to work at a jewelry store repairing diamond rings for like 5 years before I invested in the materials to start confidently making and selling them. Like, I would feel terrible if it's someone's diamond popped out of their ring just because I didn't have, that extra one practice of setting a stone. So for me, it's just, it doesn't call to me.
The overhead is just, it seems like it's ridiculous.
It's insane. It's insane. And so it's really good to apprentice at a jewelry store if that's what you're interested in, and just like save up all your money and have that confidence. So when you go into it, you're like, okay, I can do this. Where for me, I've never really been a jewelry store person. Like, I like the more low key, like, hey, I know someone who makes really cool jewelry, in their garage, in the studio. Like, let's go meet them and hear their story. And so that's just the field that I stick with. No,
for sure. You mentioned the lab grown stuff. Isn't that crazy that you can do that now? That's what I got my fiance for her engagement ring.
No, it's amazing. And it's so lab grown, and I could be saying this completely wrong, but has the exact same chemical properties of a natural diamond.
Yeah, it's wild. So look at the paperwork. It's weird.
It's really hard for even like skilled jewelers who like study. Like, I did not study diamonds. I could never tell you if a lab grown diamond was lab grown versus pulled out of the earth. Yeah. But the way that they're just like, from my perspective, like, it's doing the right thing for this earth. Like, we don't need to mine diamonds. Like, no. And it's crazy because diamond, the material, like, has no value, right? Like,
I watched a whole documentary on this.
They pop the diamonds out, and if you sell a ring, like, they pay you for the gold. They don't care about the diamonds, and they're going to resell that diamond for hundreds or thousands of dollars. And so I actually have a friend who works in the diamond industry, and her company does all lab grown, and it is so cool. And it's like the crazy technology that we can come up with. Like, I'm going to get a lab grown diamond. I just love the idea that, it's kind of doing our part for something that has no value.
Yeah. I mean, I can sleep soundly at night knowing that no one died to get my engagement ring created, and it feels the same, right? Like the thought, it was no different buying that versus buying a natural diamond. Yeah. Shout out to Forever Artisans. That's who I got mine from.
Nice.
In Milwaukee. But yeah, it's super cool. I was really amazed when I saw it and how, like, because they give you like the booklets of like how like it's basically like getting the purest diamond that you can for a fourth of the price, maybe a fifth of the price. It's cool.
And all of the like natural diamonds have so many impurities. So there's this huge grading scale, and like, you're like, wait, so I'm paying this much money for a diamond that has a flaw. Well, right. So there's something wrong with it, but it's like worth $3,000 versus like, it's crazy to me. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, for sure. Has there been a favorite piece that you made for somebody or someone got that you heard back from and that still sticks with you today?
So I did hear a story from a girl, and it was just like a tiny hammered, the most simple band. Like, I didn't even think twice about making it because I made so many of them. Yeah. And she just like wrote this review telling me the story of how like she like struggled just like feeling like herself and feeling confident. And she, in high school, she found a ring in a boutique, and it was just like this simple band. And like, it's the only thing she's ever worn. And she found a ring on my site. Just, I'm only online. So she bought it not knowing like the feel of her wearing it. And she said like, she never takes it off. Like it makes her feel like when she was in high school and found that ring for the first time. And it was like amazing being like, wow, this piece that makes you feel good yourself and confident wearing it. And like, yeah, it's not a shirt, right? Like, not a lot of people are going to see it, but like, she knows she has it on, and she knows like how good she feels like being able to find that. And I think part of that is that when I make rings, because I'm making them from scratch, I'm not buying from a manufacturer. Like I can make a size 2 and I can make a size 15. So like everyone can have a perfect ring that fits them great. And like I just started with ring sizers. So I don't want to sell you a ring until you feel confident that that's going to be the size that you need. So for like $2 or something, like I want to send you a ring sizer to your house. So you know the fit and like you keep that ring sizer forever. So if you need it for other fingers and stuff, because I'm making it by hand, like there's no too small or no too big. So like I can make that perfect size for everyone. I don't find my size in stores because it's so small or so big. It's not the standard size 7. And so I like about that.
You sort of said it's not really like a shirt, but I would argue it's better than a shirt because it lasts way longer. And
that is true.
You can wear it with almost anything. So
that is true.
It's pretty cool. I think so. I also want to talk about this because I have experience as well, maybe not making them to the level that you do, but I have dabbled in making candles before. Boy, is it expensive.
Yes.
And so basically I tried to make candles I did do it, but for my fiance's like Christmas gift one of the years, and I just made a bunch of different scents, and holy cow, it gets expensive quick. But when did you start doing that? And I saw it added to your site. So has this been something you've always been doing?
So I knew when I started my site that I wanted to expand my offering, whether that was like, I know all these amazing artists from college that make goods and like they want more places to sell them. So whether that's like selling my friends ceramics or paintings or whatnot. So candles kind of felt like something that everyone loves, a good candle, and they love when they find that scent that they're just like, I go back to. And so when I first started, I was like, I had a friend in Milwaukee and I was like, do you want to make candles with me? Like, I don't think I can make all jewelry and all candles by myself. Like I'm going to need help. So like, do you want to do this with me? And she was like, yeah, that sounds great. Like I love candles. Like we're the people that were always going to TJ Maxx buying like 10 candles just because we couldn't pick because they smell so good. So we were like, let's try this. And it was extremely hard. And we just like dove in. Like we didn't know that there was candle science to calculate the amount of ounces of like scent that you're going to put towards your soy wax. And so we just made it like, oh, it looks like a good amount. And they were terrible. They had no scent. Like they didn't burn great. And we probably wasted like 40 candles just because we were like, let's just dive in. And so that was definitely a curve, because the idea of a candle, and me making jewelry, I should know that of course it's deceiving, right? Like the idea of a candle and pouring scent and wax into a candle seems so straightforward, but it's the same with jewelry. It's pretty, but you don't realize how much goes into making it. And so we took a step back, and the big candles that we currently offer are poured for us in Tennessee. So we work with them, pick our scents. They do all the candle science, all the hard work, pour them, send them to us. But the small candles, we were like, all right, we got to do this and we got to figure this out. We got to let's start small so we're not wasting a ton of materials. And we just did a collection of like Christmas scents because it was around that time. And it's pretty rewarding, I will say, like after pouring a candle and like a week later burning it, and it like smells great and it burns well. But you're right. It's a huge investment, and we haven't decided if we're going to do it again for spring because of how big of an investment it was for
Yeah. It was such a interesting thing because I didn't know also that there was like flashpoints for like the different scents, or some of them have it. So like if you heat it up to a certain amount, you could like start a fire. And so, that was all news to me.
It's crazy. And just even thinking like, I love, like nowadays it seems like everyone is making planters out of concrete, like pouring colored concrete and making cool like plants. And I was like, we could do candles in this. And so I was like looking at it, like those can explode because they're not solid, right? Like you can, and it's like, oh my gosh, like this is just, you don't realize like you're playing with fire, but you're playing with fire when you're making a candle. And so it's crazy. And even just like what you're saying, flashpoints, scents can be heated up where they have no smell.
Right.
And so you made like 30 candles, but you heated it 5 degrees too high and it smells like nothing. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I had that problem too. I had to do so many before I even like smelt anything. It just smelled like wax was burning. So I'm like, I put so much in here. Why does it not smell like anything?
It seems like you need way more scent than you should to make a candle smell, but it's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. So talking about that as well and having like your friends stuff in pieces on your site, do you ever like want to, in the way future, open like a brick and mortar or like some store that features all the collective artists and your stuff as well in it?
Yes, my parents came to town and I love talking about these, like, these are my dreams. Like this, I will wake up and like, I was living my life 10 years from now. And I was like, I have to tell you it's going to be like, cause it's great and you're going to want to be a part of it. So let's talk about it. Yeah. But I would love to have a store where, the back half was my studio and I want to give back to the community. Like I want to be able to do like after school programs where I can teach girls in high school, like metalsmithing can become a trade. Like if college isn't for you, like if you learn this skill, like you could go work for a jewelry store or a jewelry repair company. And like, that can set you up for your life. And like, that can be a skill that you can have. That's really great. And, college isn't for everyone. And so I want to do something in the future where like I can have studio space where, yes, it's great. And I make my jewelry and I sell my work and I can have a front end where like all my friends get to sell their work and it's this like fun thing. But I want to like invest into the community and like do something where like people can come, and it doesn't just have to be like high school girls, but anyone can come and like learn. And it's like, it can become a skill that you didn't know could kind of set you up. Right. And so that's the dream, maybe 10 years from now, having kind of a boutique / studio all in one situation. Yeah,
it's really cool. So just wrapping up here, where can people find out more about like your jewelry making, buy some stuff, or contact you if they are interested in collaborating with you for a piece or something like that?
Yeah, totally. So I have my website. It's just www.halieandco.com. And then I'm always on Instagram. I love Instagram more so. Not posting my own pictures, but just seeing like what everyone in Milwaukee and the creative scene is doing. Like because I kind of joined that when COVID was happening, like I have all of these friends in Milwaukee that I've never met. Like I just talk to all the time on Instagram and like we've become so good friends and like we have all these ideas of things we want to collaborate on and do in the future. And so that's just Halie and Co, or at Halie and Co. And so, yeah, I'm available.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I think what you're doing is really awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you.